morning, St. Mark's, and anybody listening in from other communities. We're glad to have you. We hope this will be a productive time for you. It will be for us. We can almost guarantee it. Our guest today is Joe Wisniewski. Did I say that right?
Wisniewski. That's
Wisniewski.
Good. That's
all
good.
Right. And happy to have him. And he's going to tell us about where he's from and all of that. But it isn't that far away. So I'm sure that some of you already know more than I do, since I'm the foreigner here, about Joe's agency. But Joe, first of all, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Can you tell us, first of all, a little bit about yourself and where you've been and where you're from and kind of all those kind of good things?
At 60 years old, that's quite the journey. A lot of different things. I think I did a lot of different things in my life trying to figure out where I wanted to be. The biggest thing I probably did was a long stint with the Catholic Diocese of Wilmington, and technically still am a Roman Catholic priest who's on a leave of absence, and now the executive director of the Bellevue Community Center. I started off as a drug and alcohol prevention center worker for them, and then became the director of operations and kind of ran the everyday stuff at the center. And then had the opportunity to become the interim director, and now am the executive director. And I guess it'll be, it's going to be 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Since 2014.
Okay. Gotcha.
Right, so it's, this January will be 7 years.
Uh-huh.
Right.
So what does a priest, how'd you put it?
As far as I took a leave of absence,
a priest.
So I don't technically I don't have any faculties to perform to perform or function as a priest publicly. So I act as a layperson, and I run the community center. And it's interesting because everything we do over there is the same kind of stuff that you guys do here at the church. We just don't have masses and sacraments and things like that. But we feed the poor, we clothe the naked, and we visit sick people, and we do all the things that churches do. Mm-hmm. So it was a pretty easy transition.
Gotcha. By the way, just for whatever it's worth, I've always thought that Catholics are nothing but Lutherans who talk Latin, and we're nothing.
We always thought you guys were Catholic light.
There you go. There you go. I accept that. I'll accept that. So tell us about the community center and what goes on there, and how it's been for you, and whatever.
Well, the Edgemore Community Center was founded a long time ago, 1978. So we've been in business for 42 years. So we were located down at the end of Brandywine Boulevard, down where the Paladin Club is now, in the old Edgemore School. And then when they decided to build that, we moved up Brandywine Boulevard, and we were in the first floor of the current building that we're in right now, physically connected to Mount Pleasant Elementary School. They were there for a while. Things were not going great. And then the Brandywine School District decided to bring their offices in and do big renovations in the back of the building. There was an issue as to whether the community center was going to close. And there was an outreach of the community that we needed the community center. And through part of the state bond bill, we received a big chunk of the building, about 60,000 square feet of space, for $1 as part of the bond bill. But it would be the equivalent of me saying to you, I'd like to give you a new car, but it's a 1970 Ford Pinto with about 450,000 miles on it. And you got to keep it running and licensed.
Sure.
So, we took that over. We've done a lot of work. We've had a lot of folks come in, and everybody that's come in and tried to run the center has contributed to the center in a major way and brought it to a different stage. And we're doing that now, So over the past 3 years, we've been fortunate enough to raise a little over, I guess, $2.75 million to help do programming and also some physical renovations to the kind of old, dilapidated building.
Are there foundation monies, I presume?
A lot of foundation money, Longwood Foundation and Crystal Trust and different foundations. The state of Delaware has donated a lot of money through the bond bill and stuff. But we've been able to renovate the whole entire front entrance of the building has been completely redone. Mm-hmm. All the exterior concrete has been redone. Brand new heating and air conditioning system, all new lighting throughout the building. The roofs were completely redone. So there's all kind. And we completely renovated our gymnasium, which was in desperate need of a facelift. And everything is beautiful. We're going to have an open house. Everybody will get invited to the kind of reopening of the Bellevue Community Center sometime in early November. We'll let folks
coming
know.
up soon here.
Yeah, we're going to do some ribbon cutting and just kind of show off what's going on over there.
Oh, I'd love to come over. Can I advertise that here?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Be glad to.
We'll have a lot of folks there. Like I said, there's going to be some dignitaries and some great politicians like John Cartier, Newcastle County, Deb Heffernan, Harris McDowell, folks that have been very supportive of the kind of the work that we're doing over there. So a couple ribbon cuttings and that'll be great. We'll get to show it off.
Big celebration.
Yep.
I'm glad you can have something like that under the circumstances.
We'll be COVIDly responsible during all of that.
Sure.
So.
Sure. Forgive my needing to go back into history so much, but I was on United Way allocations back in probably the early to mid and late 80s, and I had panel 3, which I believe was community centers. I was trying to remember if I had anything to do with your community center when you were down at the end, where Paladin Club is now.
Yeah, I was in the old Edgemoor School.
I could have. It was fun doing that, by the way, is giving away money. I didn't have to worry about where it came from.
Oh, that would be a great job. It's harder to ask. Although I know it's got to be very difficult to give away money because there's so many people asking.
We were very careful about it. To tell you the truth, I trusted the process. It wasn't perfect, but we were very scrutinizing, and I have no idea how that goes these days. I've lost complete touch.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and you know some of the funders are they're pretty reasonable to work with, and they just want to make sure that there's good sustainability, that there's good leadership, that the money's going to be used properly, and then there's big federal loans and grants, and we've been fortunate enough to be awarded a couple big federal grants to do drug and alcohol prevention work.
Okay.
And that's one of the big things we do at the community center through our Outreach and Prevention Center, spearheaded by Daniel Elkins, who's the director of the center. And we have connections with the Delaware Prevention Coalition and the Planet Youth Coalition and a lot of community partners, just trying to help our community, all within the 19809 zip code, just doing a lot of drug and alcohol prevention stuff.
And I'm sure there's plenty of that to do.
Oh, there's a lot of work to do. That's why there's so much money available.
Yeah.
They're really hoping folks like us can really tackle this problem.
How has that particular aspect of your work changed during COVID? Has that gotten worse?
It's gotten a little more difficult to do just because we can't do the physical, being physically present with everybody that we normally would do. I mean, we were just like everybody else. We were locked down from March 13th all the way up until the middle of June when we finally were able to kind of limitedly reopen. But the folks in our outreach office, we have an art lab that's over there, and Mama Jo Redbird is our art director. And between Daniel and Mama Jo, they were reaching out to the kids in the community. We were doing a lot of work with our summer camp kids. We were doing a lot of virtual stuff. But as you know, virtual is very different than being, physically present with folks, and especially kids, and being able to interact with them and answer their questions. So, but it's just like anything else. Once everybody was quarantined, then that opened up Pandora's box for all kinds of problems. Kids weren't able to get out. They were home alone. Who knows? That we've already starting to see some of the reports coming in for spikes in things like alcoholism and suicide and abuse of folks at home and stuff like that. So I think it was important, but it's something that we really got to take a look at and see how we're going to be moving forward. How long are we going to be able to do this?
Yeah, for sure. The spousal abuse issue, I read, has gotten significantly worse.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to get up and go to work. It's another thing just to be home all day, 24 hours a day, and be locked in the house. And hopefully folks are getting out. But the other thing that is a huge program for what we do at the community center is Bellevue Farms, which is our big community garden in the back of the building, and it is our farm itself. It's spearheaded by Elisa King, who is our director of the farm. And we have Melody and Karen, and we have some of our youth that are working in the farm. not only have we been doing community gardens and working with folks in the community who come in and they rent a box and they grow their own produce all summer long, but the farm has been producing an enormous amount of food. We sell that food through our Friday night farmers market that we partnered with Newcastle County every Friday night. And we just had a festival last week, just this past Saturday, and we were able to sell stuff to local folks. And then we've been working with the Common Market in Philadelphia. We've been bringing food down, and we have been trying to provide food to folks that need it in difficult, troubling times.
And that's gotten significantly worse.
That's gotten very significant. Well, just imagine how many kids go to school and rely on their school to be fed. They go in for breakfast, they go in for lunch, snacks. We've always provided that at the community center for all of our kids, whether it's our child care program, our before and after school program, our summer camp program. And right now what we're doing is we're doing virtual academy. So all these kids that, particularly elementary school kids, that have to be home doing virtual academy, but parents have to go to work, they're dropping their kids off at us in a very COVID-free, safe environment, and we section them off in their grades, and we are there with them and enable them to get all hooked up and do their virtual schooling.
I respect that in spades. That's got to be. I hear from people that I encounter, actually some very recently, that rural communities, for instance, and that's not necessarily what you're doing, but are suffering from a lack of broadband when it comes to these kids trying to study. Right. And, the equipment itself, computers, not everybody has one at home. Right. And those kind of things. I literally went to a company to look for a printer because mine was going kaflooey, and they're sold out because the kids are buying those things and needing to procure them somehow. So and that's have to continue. The
school district has helped a lot.
Sure.
The school district has issued all these Chromebooks to all of the kids. And they've had to sign them out and take care of them, and then they bring them with their headphones to us, and we get them all set up. I mean, the community center spent almost $20,000 rewiring our building for Wi-Fi and internet connectability, just so that we could open the doors. We have probably, I think right now we have probably 100 kids over there.
Oh, wow.
In our child care center and in our virtual academy. Might be like closer to 120. We are bursting at the seams. We do not have enough classroom space or teachers available to actually, we get calls every single day. Parents are looking for spots to send their kids. They're trying to go back to work. And because of COVID, the restrictions that are placed on us through the CDC in the state of Delaware and the Office of Child Care Licensing, distancing, all that stuff, we're limited. We're limited to the number of kids, and we would love to bring in more kids, but we just don't have we physically just don't have the space.
Are there other programs in the community similar to that? What you're doing there, or is that?
I'm not sure. I think Claymont Community Center is doing stuff. I haven't talked to Allison in a while because of COVID, but I mean it's a need. So I got to imagine they're doing it. And then of course once you get into the older grades, the middle and high school kids, they're going back and forth and doing this. A couple days home, couple days online, couple days back in school. So they're kind of juggling. All of these kids are trying to juggle. Some sense of normalcy amidst all of this stuff.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
One question about the farm. Is that right on site?
It's on site. It's in the back of the building. Basically what happened was when the Brandywine School District came in and decided to put their district offices physically in our building with us, the Mount Pleasant Elementary School, and the Brandywine School District, they had to cut roads in, entry into the parking lots and expand the parking lots. And what they did was they cut down what was a pretty good size football, soccer field that was in the back. And it wasn't big enough anymore for them to, play soccer on. So we took that and we created, we have a pavilion and a playground, an open space for kids. And then we built boxes for the community members. They're 4 feet by 16 feet long. So they rent them for like $25 for the whole summer. And folks that don't have space at home or want to get involved in community gardening can come out and do that. And it's been really successful. And then the back part of that, Elisa and her crew really that has grown amazingly, no pun intended, in all kinds of ways. As a matter of fact, we also just received a grant for a high tunnel, which is about 10 feet high by 20 feet wide by 40 feet long, and it is an enclosed structure that will allow us to grow produce all year long, and not just in the summer months.
Yeah, there's, is it called horizontal farming or I guess it would be vertical?
Well, vertical would be coming up, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not really sure with Lisa how she's going to set that up. I'm anxious. We just ordered the thing this week, so I'm excited about getting that in. We're kind of to the end of the growing season. There's still stuff coming in, but very quickly once we get to the first frost, then the folks will be kind of clearing out their beds and prepping them for the winter. But then with this new high tunnel, we'll move into planting stuff that will be able to grow all winter long.
Kennett Square, up near where I live, we used to live in Kennett Square, but because of the mushroom industry and it being distinctive in terms of how it functions, and I know nothing about that, but I attended a program on how Kennett is being used as a model for other kinds of, I guess it is called vertical farming. And it has to do with water preservation. It has to do with being able to do other than seasonal growing of certain kind of thing. And so it's the thing of the future.
Right. Well, Ajit George and his company Second Chances Farms, a little plug for him. They have a great big warehouse, and it is vertical farming. It is aqua farming. I have never been there and seen it. But they're doing really, really well. And I recently heard that he's actually this week is traveling out to Las Vegas and a couple of different spots, and he's talking about doing Second Chances Farms in different locations throughout the country. And Second Chances Farms helps folks that are coming out of prison actually get a second chance and learn how to do this farming, get some job development stuff.
Is that where Second Chance as a title comes from?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
excellent. Okay.
So it's an amazing program. As a matter of fact, our Attorney General William Barr was just in Wilmington visiting Second Chances Farm as a way to kind of take a look at, I guess, through the criminal justice system and how we're trying to help folks that are coming out of prison get restarted and give themselves some dignity and some work. So it's been very successful. I mean, they're doing very, very well.
I think it's good to hear, and I'm going to speak to the St. Mark's people and our guests for just a moment, about the really excellent kinds of programs that are going on. There are more needed, I'm sure, but I'm glad we have an opportunity through people like Joe and his agency and others to become more acquainted with the kinds of things that are going on. And each of us may have different kinds of passions, but perhaps there's something that gets mentioned that you could plug into if you're so inclined. And that would be helpful, I'm sure. And I'm sure that agencies would help people plug into the things that they care about in a direct sort of a way.
It's a little bit difficult right now with COVID to try to bring volunteers in. We do have a couple of volunteers. We have a lady, Pat Novak, who is like the volunteer of the year, who comes in every Tuesday and Thursday and helps us in our main office, keeps us all straight. Yeah, certainly keeps me straight every week. And it's great to have the regular faces, but I think we got to move along a little further down the line with COVID in order to kind of open our doors back up. We're really strict about the building, just like I know you are here with folks coming in. If you're going to come into Bellevue, you have to fill out the sheet, you have to answer the questions, you have to have your temperature checked. I think it's like that everywhere you go. And
absolutely.
I mean, we have to keep our kids and our teachers and our families safe. And I think the way we've been able to do that, Dr. Brown, our Director of Education, Chrissy and Sharon, our assistant directors, we came up with a plan where we've isolated every grade, where there's no cross contamination, if you will, from grade to grade. They just don't all come into one classroom at any one time. They don't even pass each other in the hallways at any one time. And if we end up having some type of case or somebody gets sick, we're able to close down an individual room rather than close down the entire center. And it's been It's gone very, very well. We've been very fortunate, very blessed to we've been open since June 22nd, and it's great. It's work. It's very difficult and it's very stressful. We've had to hire extra people for cleaning purposes
Sure.
and keep the place sanitized all the time. At night, there's special cleaning that goes on to get ready for the next day. So it's been a challenge, but it's great to see the kids and to see them come into the building and do the kind of stuff that the kids need to do. And they get to use our brand new gym.
There you go.
And they're running around outside in the garden. I was with them yesterday in the garden. We were picking a couple of string beans and looking at the flowers and all the things that are growing out there. So it's great to see them running around outside as well.
I'm sorry that I personally, and I think some of the other pastors that I've met in the region because of COVID have not had quite the opportunity to plug in cooperatively with the kinds of things you're doing and with what each other needs to or wants to be doing. I believe in that kind of networking. I have that history. It's kind of hard. I don't want to make this as an excuse, but as an interim pastor where my focus is on, getting the congregation to a certain kind of point.
Sure.
But this congregation has a history of involvement and engagement with other churches, and I presume to some extent with your agency and
Absolutely.
So forth. So we look forward to the time when that can be renewed. Now, maybe I can ask you to be a bit prophetic in terms of what kinds of things that you would like to see happen or need to be happening after COVID.
Right.
It has to be prophetic guesswork, I guess, but
Right.
in terms of the kinds of services that you are in a position to offer, knowing what your boundaries and limits are based on space, financial resources, and so forth and so on, what post-COVID, whenever that is, could you see or would like to see happening?
Well, we've always had a wonderful partnership, community partnership with St. Mark's, Presbyterian Church of the Covenant, the Methodist Church, the Edgemoor Revitalization Cooperative down in Edgemoor Gardens. We have all tried to work together. We all tried to do individual events at Christmas time and Thanksgiving and Halloween and different things in the summertime. And I think what we've realized is that we're better off working together than trying to work individually.
Oh, sure.
You guys always had the big Christmas bazaar, and we tried to weave everything together to try to work collaboratively.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to continue doing that. I mean, we had some wonderful events together prior to COVID. Like I mentioned earlier, we had our Harvest Festival just this past Saturday. It was a very low-key event. We probably had about 125, maybe 150 people come out. Mm-hmm. Listen to some live music and some food trucks, and Bellefonte Brewery came out, and we had some vendors, and I think a fun time was had by all, as they say. So that's the kind of stuff I think is really helpful to make available the different offerings that you guys are doing, that we're doing, that Jenny's doing next door, and Pastor Kate is doing next door. I mean, there's no sense in us trying to do this all independently and working in individual silos. I think partnering and working together, I'd really like to see us continue to do that. And not just on events, but on issues. We partnered one time with naloxone training, which is the antidote for heroin if you overdose. If you have naloxone, you can reverse the effects. And so we had a training one night, the three, us, Presbyterian Church of the Covenant, and you guys here. We were in Jenny's sanctuary space. We brought in guest speakers. We had Brady One Counseling in. They provided all of the naloxone for anybody that came for training. Mm-hmm. And it was a great evening tackling a very difficult problem in our community. And people walked away with a kit in their hand that if they encountered someone, and a lot of people encounter them in their own homes or certainly in their own neighborhoods.
Sure.
They were at least prepared to try to do something to reverse a difficult decision. So there's the kinds of things I think we can do together. We don't need to kind of function individually. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And one of the things that is a little odd, not necessarily odd bad, it's just a reality, is that most of the people who belong to this congregation don't live here.
Right, that's
But
tough.
the church lives here.
Right.
And I think there's an awareness that as an institution, a religious institution in this case, in this community, one of the things that we want to be and need to be is a good neighbor.
Sure.
And as a pastor who's been around, I mean, I'm almost 50 years ordained, and I've watched all kinds of things happen, but one of the things that seems to me to be essential, at least in some places, is that churches network. And I don't mean to exclude agencies, but sometimes churches have been very competitive and not cooperative.
Right.
And if the Methodist Church has an excellent youth program, let's support it.
Right.
If the Episcopal Church has an excellent adult education program, let's support it. And that doesn't mean we can't have one. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that we're not involved with it. But that kind of networking, given the reduction of members in churches these days, is going to be absolutely essential if churches are going to function in any kind of a thriving way.
Right.
And then, again, you've got all kinds of reasons why we should be plugging in and should anticipate a future of plugging into the kinds of things you're doing. They matter to us.
I think there's a lot of territorialism that has happened in some of the churches, you know, particularly in the lines of like food distribution and giveaway and food pantries and things like that. And it's like they've been in business. They've been feeding hungry people for a long time, and that's one of the things we're trying to do in this area. Working with Rob Gurney, you had Rob here, I know, recently. You know, the work that we're doing, we've been talking about trying to bring all of the food services together. And how do we create a network that answer the question of why is someone that lives down by you know, the riverfront, why are they coming all the way up here to get food? So there's some of those questions that we're looking at, and we need to work more collaboratively on that rather than be territorial. And you know, I think we can get a lot more done. I mean, Ginny and I, we work together with the kids in our after-school program. She gets some folks that want to send their kids to a faith-based program, and then and there's no charge for the families to send their kids to her program. But then if the family qualifies for purchase of care, they send the kids over to our program, and we'll do the same thing. If we've got families that want to have after-school care but can't afford after-school care, we'll send them over to Ginny and say, you know, this might be the spot for them. And I'm really excited that Ginny, I know, I don't know if she's made the announcement or not, but she just got a great big grant to help her move forward with her programming. So that's going to be wonderful to see that happening.
Now, Kate, the interim pastor at Covenant, is coming over here next week for this kind of an interview.
That's great.
We've been waiting to kind of have occasion to get together anyway.
Right.
But tell people who Jenny is, just in case they don't know.
Ginny Jones is sort of like the director of operations of Presbyterian Church of the Covenant. She is. I don't understand all the intricacies of how the church system works for them. I know that she does some sacramental things. I know she does some funerals. I know she preaches. She coordinates a lot of the ministries and things that happen there. She works with. They have a wonderful music program over there, and so she works with them to do different types of events and things like that. That's kind of how I've always seen her in my interactions with her over the years. Has been she's sort of the director of operations, kind of keep it, but in a real spiritual kind of way, because she is, you know, not only just a member of the church as someone that organizes things, but also is a very spiritual person and gets involved from that context as well.
Yeah, and I know that Covenant and St. Mark's have had a historic relationship of cooperation, and that has, you know, not been able to function in the same fashion during COVID. It's just
you're right.
Not been possible.
It's hard. I mean, our churches were closed for so long. I know in our churches, in the Catholic Church, you know, we've slowly been opening back up, but we've been, you know, limited number of people. Seating in the churches have been limited. You know, masks when you go to the different masses and things like that. So, And I don't think Presbyterian Church, I think, I'm not sure, their congregation is a little bit older. Pastor Kate can answer that next week when she's here. But I don't think they're doing anything inside at this point. So
Yeah.
I think they're doing a lot of their outside stuff on Sunday afternoons. It's difficult for an older congregation.
Well, we're a little bigger, but not any younger.
Right.
In terms of that sort of thing. About the Catholic situation, it just comes to mind. I can be a little eclectic here, please forgive me. But Sister Jean Cashman is a good friend of mine. I presume you know her. Or
I know of her. I don't think I've ever met her.
She and Rabbi Grimbacher and myself had taught a class at Osher on interfaith work 4 or 5 times in the past. It was a very popular class. I think people were looking for a safe place to learn about each other spiritually and so forth and so on. But I was at an event that was held for her a while back, and somebody mentioned that half the priests in the diocese of, is it Wilmington or Delaware?
We're in the Diocese of Wilmington.
Wilmington.
Wilmington, Delaware, though.
Okay.
It's the diocese is all of the state of Delaware and the 9 counties of the eastern shore of Maryland.
Gotcha. But half the priests are over 70?
I'm not actually sure if that's. It's got to be close.
Yeah.
It's got to be close. There are a good young crop of kids, young men that have come in.
Yeah.
And they're now in seminary formation. There was a good group last year, and from what I understand, there's another good group of guys that are coming in this year. But it has gotten a little thin.
It's a little bit off task in terms of you and me, but one of the things that seems to be happening in our seminaries and in other Protestant seminaries is that it used to be the case that you get out of the seminary with a debt of $25,000, $35,000, $45,000, and you're not going to make that up in the ministry. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
And so they've found
You mean
funds.
you don't make $200,000 a year?
I'm not Joel Olston. Sorry about that. I don't want
Prosperity
to be.
gospel.
And that's helped. So I think more people are going in knowing that they don't have to come out with
Right.
significant debt.
Well, that was never an issue with us. I mean, we had. I know the Catholic Diocese of Wilmington had a burst down at St. Mary's Seminary, which is the main seminary we use in Baltimore, Maryland. And one of the things that has always been the issue is you want to be able to, when you go into seminary, to properly discern and whether or not you should be there, whether or not you should continue, whether or not you should move on to ordination. And you can't properly discern that if there's a dollar sign hanging over your head. If you thought that you were going to leave seminary today and at the end of that have to pay back $50,000, then you might not leave. And then maybe you're not really making the right decisions.
Sure.
So I think the money was always eliminated as a barrier for proper discernment as to whether or not you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, what God wants you to do.
And if you have a family, in our case, and you feel called, dragging a family into a debt like that is utterly ridiculous to begin with. So.
Yeah, that is a little more difficult. So, but we do have, people say, the married clergy. We do have a married clergy. It's called the permanent diaconate. So that within the church is, you can be married and with families and to be a deacon, a permanent deacon in the church.
Well,
there is a transitional deacon that a man in seminary actually goes through the regular orders and he becomes ordained a transitional deacon on his way to priesthood ordination. But then there's also a side diaconate, which is the permanent diaconate, which is not moving towards priesthood, but it's assistance at the altar and sacramental and preaching and things like that, working with the poor.
Well, the Catholic Church just lost a good previous Lutheran who'd been in the priesthood.
Leonard Klein.
Leonard Klein.
Wonderful, wonderful holy man. He was actually in his transition, came through St. Mary's Seminary to do some Catholic training when I was in seminary, and I got to meet him and his wife and the kids and his daughter, and that was
his wife and I are.
She was brilliant.
We're classmates from Valparaiso University, which is a Lutheran school. We didn't know each other back then, and I actually hadn't had occasion to meet with her here, but Leonard and I used to have lunch together, and I had profound respect for the man. And at least Lutherans and Catholics have turned over a new leaf as of the 500th anniversary of the Reformation in 17 that occasioned some cooperations that didn't exist before. But back to the issue of the community here and so forth and so on. Where do you see and how do you define the neighborhood here? How would you define the community?
Well, I think the Bellevue Community Center, formerly the Edgemoor Community Center, now the Bellevue Community Center, we changed our name about 7, maybe 8 years ago. And we really only named it Bellevue Community Center because of the proximity to the Bellevue State Park, which is right across the street. So people would geographically know where we are. And our pocket of need, if you would, is the Edgemoor Gardens area and the folks that live down there, particularly the young people that live in that area. But we service all of 19809.
And how far north might that go?
We go up to the Claymont line, the 19703 line of Claymont, but we're really good friends with Shirley Abramowitz, who is the executive director of the Knollwood Community Center, which is on the other side of Claymont, on the other side of Namens Road. So they have very limited resources. So when we're doing programming, like a basketball program or a cooking class or something like that, we offer that to Shirley. We have a bus. So we'll send the bus up and pick up a couple of kids that might want to take part in a program, bring them down to us, and we get them back into their communities. So most of our kids go to Mount Pleasant High School. They go to Mount Pleasant. I would say probably 60 or 70% of the kids in our youth programming from elementary school go right next door to Mount Pleasant Elementary School. So they're kind of local. So what we're really trying to do is reach out to the other parts of our community, which is the Bellefonte area and the area sort of surrounding the church here on this side. A lot of people didn't know who we were or what we did. When you explain to people, wow, you do that? Oh, that's what happens in that building on the corner.
Okay.
So we've been trying to make sure that that people know what we do. The garden has been amazing. Elisa's programs, just the visibility of what happens on a Friday night when there's a big farmer's market and you hear music and, there's a lot of fun that's going on there. That has brought a lot of people from the community into the community center. But that's something that we're still struggling with and trying to get folks that live. We used to be known as the building where the African American kids went and played basketball. That's what they did. The kids came from Edgemoor and they went in and they played basketball. And yeah, we do have really great basketball programs, but that's not all that the kids were doing at that point. So, we also have Scott Michaels and the Cause, his nonprofit called the Cause. We've gotten some grant funding, and we have a full-blown video production studio over there where kids are learning how to shoot video, edit video, do public service announcements. The outreach, the prevention and outreach office, and the work that Daniel's doing, the funding that we've received on the federal level that's being dumped into that is, it's not just a class of don't smoke or don't drink. I mean, they're really trying to do more than that. They're producing public service announcements. Some of these little 30-second, 1-minute videos that the kids themselves produce have actually been shown nationally.
Oh, wow.
Through the DEA and stuff like that. So there's a lot of really great work that's going over there. We have a couple of vendors. We have one church that's there, and we have Chris and her group run an organization called All the Difference, which is a group that work with kids with autism.
I'm familiar with that.
And so they come over to our place and they have these therapeutic modalities that they're.
Is that going on now?
Now they've been closed since as long as we've been closed back on March 19th. It's funny, we had on March 13th, I typed up a sign that we hung on all the doors that said, the Bellevue Community Center will be closed from March 13th to March 31st. And we thought it was going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah, okay.
And most of the building is still, we're trying to get ready to open our brand new front entrance, which is beautiful. Instead of having this long concrete ramp that people had to wind their way through, we actually put in a hydraulic handicap lift. And we're just waiting for the kind of that to be tweaked and then be inspected. And as soon as that passes the inspection, we're going to open the front entrance again. But it's difficult. I mean, you have to figure out, anybody coming in and out of the building, like downstairs where the kids are, like I said, they get their temperature checked, they get the questions. You have to provide the same thing up at the other entrance if people are going to come into the building, if you're going to keep everybody in the building safe.
When again is your ribbon cutting?
We don't actually have a date. I have an executive board meeting this Thursday night. We're going to talk about it Thursday night. It's going to be probably I'm kind of hoping around November 15th.
Okay.
Do it before the big holidays.
I would love to. I'm going to keep my eyes open.
Oh
and
yeah,
watch
we
when
will send you an invite.
Please.
Everybody will get invited to that.
And then maybe when COVID's over, and I don't know how long I'm going to be here at St. Mark's, we have a call committee now, and hopefully a pastor will be in the offing in the not too distant future, as soon as possible.
So you're not going to stay?
Somebody gave a seminar on retirement. I said, what is that? Anyway, I hope that you and I can have a personal tour of.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do that.
When that's possible.
Yeah. The other thing we're working on right now is we're working with the folks down at the Wilmington Public Library. We have an old library in our building that was part of the school that we've been in discussion with them to bring in a Wilmington Public Library annex right in our building. So right across the street, you will have a public library. It's not going to be like all these books and shelves and things like that. It'll be electronics. You'll be able to go online and order a book and run across the street and pick it up, or drop off a book, or they offer programming and things like that. And it will help us with bringing folks into the building, awareness of our programs, traffic flow, more of a hub for the local community. We're really trying to be a safe haven, a hub for folks in the community. And we open our place for the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and all the civic associations that have to have their meetings and things like that. So, we do karate classes and basketball classes, and we have senior men's basketball. You got to be 50 to play in. They only play half court. They don't play the full court.
Yeah.
So there's just a whole lot of stuff that's going on over there and we're really fortunate. We just got a really great Alexis. She's a public ally, and she's going to help us tell our story through social media, through our website, and things like that. So we're in infancy stages with that, but hopefully folks are going to know who we are and what we do. There's a lot of really great stuff happening over there.
Two things, Joe, as we sort of close off here. One is are there any obvious gaps in I asked the question about what the neighborhood and how that's defined, or what the community is, that sort of strike you as standing out, and that at least someday will need some attention that they're not getting now? Anything that comes to mind?
Well, I think one of the things that we're going to start working on is we're going to start working on the men of our community, fatherhood, what it means to be father, what it means to be a man in the community. I think a lot of our young, particularly our young African American guys that are coming into our program, don't have a lot of really great positive role models. And so I know we're starting a program and trying to try to develop that. I think that's going to be an interesting aspect of what we do. We're also trying to expand our food food distribution program. There is a serious gap in hunger, and how many people are hungry, and where people get their food, and something called the food desert. And there are pockets where the only access to food is a local corner store, a bodega, and they don't necessarily have great access to Food Lions or things like that. And so, lunch might be a bag of chips and a Coke, or So I know Lisa is working really hard to try to develop food distribution sources and ways to get more food to more people that need it, and to give awareness of food and where food comes from. That's one of the big things. Kids have no idea that they can start off with this little plant and they can put it in and it'll grow up, and a little yellow flower will grow, and then this green thing comes out, and then the sun turns it red, and oh my gosh, it's a tomato, and is that where that comes from? And so I think the fatherhood thing, the male role model for our young guys, foods are two big priorities that we're kind of addressing right now. And of course, the third thing is the drug and alcohol prevention. And one of the tools that we're using is our new art lab. So Mama Jo Redbird, who's a very well-accomplished artist, she's working with our kids and giving them all kinds of projects to do, and we're trying we're trying to weave it all together. So how does drug and alcohol prevention and maybe alternative activities to keeping kids off the street and safe? You can do that through gardening. You can do that through art. You can do that through athletics. So everything that we do is kind of woven together. So we're really trying to focus on a lot of those things, and of course our education program is just bursting at the seams. Prior to COVID, we had a waiting list in every single grade of our child care program and our before and after school program. Summer camp was 100 kids. I mean, we were doing really well. And we now have a waiting list in every grade of post-COVID or in COVID, because we just don't have the physical space to take everybody that we want. So our kids need alternative activities, and they need the education and the stuff that we're providing. They need a safe place to go.
Sure.
They really do, instead of standing on the corners.
Last thing is, this doesn't need to be one and done. I hope we can have you back.
Sure, absolutely.
And especially as COVID, if that happens in any kind of way soon, and we all have our hopes, and we have to wait and see what science does for us, and the good Lord. But
Sure.
I would like to think that we could have this again somehow, or my successor can have this. Who knows? And how can St. Mark's plug in or be a greater part of what's happening in the neighborhood in which this church lives?
Right.
So,
Right.
thanks for
Exactly.
coming.
Well, thanks
Appreciate
for having me.
it.
It's great.
Good.
I got to apologize to you for forgetting you 2 weeks ago. I guess it was. I just completely forgot that we were on schedule to do this a couple of weeks ago, and all of a sudden my phone's blowing up, and I'm coming into the office, and they're looking for you at St. Mark's. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's today. And then of course, by the time I got in and called, it was too late for that day. So thank you for rescheduling and giving us the opportunity.
Well, we are forgiving people.
Yes. Well, that's what I thought. I thought,
So you know.
this is a church, right?
All right. Joe, thanks again.
Thanks.
Lord be with you. See you next time, folks.